Why do some people fall in love with you the moment they meet you? Not the kind of love based on looks, charm, or the version of yourself you try to present, but the kind of love that feels like they've known you in another lifetime. A love so deep, even they can't explain it. Have you ever had someone who just couldn't take their eyes off you, even when you did nothing to attract them? Have you ever hurt someone deeply just by quietly stepping out of their life? You might think it's fate, but Carl Jung had a very different explanation, one that could completely change the way you see love, yourself, and every relationship you've ever had. In this video, we'll take you into the deepest layers of Jungian psychology, where concepts like anima, animus, and psychological projection silently shape human attraction. And by the end, you might realize people don't fall in love with who you are. They fall in love with what you represent inside their hidden inner world. Don't look away, because the second reason someone falls madly in love with you will make you rethink every past relationship you've ever known. If you're passionate about self-growth and uncovering the truth behind human emotions, hit that subscribe button and join our Telegram community. Videos like this will help you understand others more deeply and understand yourself like never before. Maybe you've lived long enough to know that love isn't always logical. It doesn't follow checklists or timelines. Sometimes a person enters your life and something just clicks, so instantly, so deeply, that you can't explain why. You weren't looking for them. You weren't trying to impress, and yet there they are, and somehow you matter to them in a way that feels bigger than the moment. Carl Jung believed that this kind of magnetic connection isn't random, it's psychological. It begins with something called projection, and it may help explain some of the most unforgettable relationships in your life, those that left you shaken, awakened, or even broken. You see, all of us carry around pieces of ourselves that are hidden from view. Memories, longings, regrets, traits we admire in others but don't fully express ourselves. These live quietly in our unconscious mind, shaping the people we're drawn to without us realizing it. Jung suggested that when someone falls in love with you, it might not be because of who you are, but because of what you represent in their inner world. Let that sink in. They're not just loving you, they're loving the part of themselves they see in you, the part they lost or never allowed to grow. To them, you become a symbol of something they lack. Maybe it's your calm presence, maybe it's your boldness, maybe it's the kindness in your eyes that reminds them of home. Whatever it is, you trigger something powerful in them, and suddenly they feel whole again, or at least closer to it. This can be beautiful, but also dangerous. Think back. Has someone ever clung to you, admired you deeply, only to grow distant later on? Or maybe the reverse. Have you ever felt drawn to someone so intensely it scared you, only to realize they weren't quite what you imagined? That's projection at work. It doesn't mean the love wasn't real. It means the love was aimed at something inside themselves, reflected through you. You became the mirror. One of the most striking things Jung pointed out is that this kind of love often has very little to do with age, beauty, or status. It's not about being perfect. In fact, people often fall in love with someone precisely because that person reflects something they're missing. A quiet man might fall for someone expressive and full of life. A woman who's always been the caregiver might fall for someone who finally makes her feel taken care of. These aren't just preferences, they're emotional blueprints formed over years of lived experience. For older adults, this realization can be healing. You begin to understand why certain people affected you so deeply, why you couldn't let go, or why you fell hard when you least expected it. Maybe you've spent years wondering why that one person stayed in your heart, even though the relationship didn't last. Maybe now you see They awakened something that had been sleeping inside you for decades, and sometimes you were that person for someone else. As we age, we carry these emotional echoes. They shape how we connect, who we trust, and who we still think about when the world is quiet. And if you've ever felt like someone put you on a pedestal only to step back. The moment you showed your flaws, Jung would say they weren't really loving you. They were loving what they hoped you would complete in them. But here's the gift: awareness. When you begin to see these patterns, you can meet love with clearer eyes. You can appreciate how someone reflects a part of you without expecting them to complete you. You can cherish connections that grow from truth, not illusion. And perhaps most importantly, you can look back on past relationships not with regret, but with understanding. Because every person who loved you, even imperfectly, helped you see something in yourself. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real purpose of love after all. Not to fix us, not to fill us, but to help us remember who we are and who we've always had the potential to become. So the next time someone feels drawn to you, and they will, ask yourself this: what part of them is waking up in you? And when you feel that pull toward another soul, pause. There may be more happening than meets the eye. Love, after all, is never just about what's in front of us. It's also about what's been waiting within. Now that we've explored how love can reflect what someone is missing within, let's go even deeper. Carl Jung believed that beneath projection, there's an even more ancient force at play, one rooted in the very architecture of the human psyche. He called it the anima and animus, powerful inner images of the opposite gender that each of us carry, often without even knowing it. For Jung, every man holds within him an unconscious image of the feminine, his anima. Every woman, an image of the masculine, her animus. But these aren't just fantasies or ideals. They are emotional blueprints shaped by our early life, especially our relationship with our parents or caregivers, and influenced by culture, myth, and personal experience. Over time, they become a kind of inner compass, quietly guiding us toward people who seem to match that internal image. And when we meet someone who even partially resembles this hidden inner figure, the attraction can be overwhelming. We may feel we've known them forever, though we've just met. We may call it love at first sight, destiny, or soul connection. But Jung would gently remind us, it's not fate, it's the psyche recognizing itself. Let's pause here. Have you ever met someone who didn't make sense on paper, but your heart reacted to them instantly? Not just attraction, but recognition. That's the anima or animus coming alive. You're not falling in love with a person. You're responding to a symbol they've unknowingly activated in you, a living, breathing reflection of your inner world. This is why certain loves feel impossible to explain, why even decades later you still remember how someone made you feel, even if the relationship never took root. It's not always the person themselves. It's the emotional archetype they awakened in you. But this also explains why those same intense loves can so easily collapse. Because when someone loves you through the lens of their inner anima or animus, they're not really seeing you. They're seeing a vision, a sacred, idealized version of what they think you should be. You become a screen for their projection of character in their internal story. But no one can live up to an archetype forever. Over time, the real you emerges. Your flaws, your fears, your contradictions, all the beautifully human things that make you you. And when that happens, the fantasy starts to unravel. What once felt perfect now feels complicated. Misunderstandings creep in. Disappointment follows. Not because you changed, but because the image no longer fits. You may have felt this before. Maybe you were adored at first, praised for your spirit, your calm, your smile. But slowly, as you became more real, more vulnerable, the connection frayed. Or maybe you've done this to others, expecting them to live up to something you could never fully describe. And yet, Jung didn't see this as failure. He saw it as growth. Because these encounters, as painful or confusing as they might be, serve a deeper purpose. They push us closer to wholeness. When we fall for someone who matches our animus, we're not just chasing love, we're chasing integration. Our psyche is asking us to own those parts of ourselves instead of outsourcing them. For older adults, this insight is incredibly powerful. Many people carry wounds from relationships that felt magical at first and fell apart later. We wonder what went wrong, what we missed. But through Jung's lens, we see something new. Maybe that person came into your life not to stay, but to awaken something that had gone unspoken for too long. Maybe he reminded you of your youthful freedom. Maybe she mirrored your need for emotional safety. Maybe that connection was never meant to last, but to reveal something sacred about your own inner life. And here's where real healing begins. Because once we understand how these unconscious forces shape our love stories, we no longer see heartbreak as proof of failure. We see it as a lesson. We realize we were never just falling in love with another person. We were falling into a deeper relationship with ourselves. You are not too old to evolve. Every connection, even now, carries meaning. Even now, the psyche continues to whisper. Through love, longing, and memory, and the people you meet, even at this stage of life, may still awaken forgotten parts of your soul. So the next time you feel a strong pull towards someone, or someone is magnetically drawn to you, pause. Ask yourself not just, why now, but what inner story is unfolding? Love is never just about the other. It is always in some way a journey back home to yourself. By now, we've uncovered two powerful truths. First, that people fall in love with you because you reflect something they long for. And second, that deep within each of us lives an image of the ideal other, a sacred unconscious pattern that shapes who we are drawn to. But there is still one more layer, one final realization that brings all of this together. Carl Jung believed that love, no matter how joyful or painful, is never just about romance. It is a mirror, sometimes clear, sometimes distorted, meant to show us who we really are and who we might yet become. Think about the people you've loved most in your life, the ones you couldn't forget, the ones who made you feel alive, understood, maybe even devastated. Now ask yourself, what did they awaken in me that I had forgotten or never fully owned? Because the third truth is this: love, in its deepest form, is not just an emotional experience. It is a catalyst for inner transformation. And the older we get, the clearer this becomes. When we're young, we fall in love with the idea of being completed. We look outward toward beauty, attention, validation. But over time, as we live and lose and learn, we realize something quieter, something more profound. Every love leaves a mark, not just on our hearts, but on our growth. Some people show us who we could be. Some reveal the wounds we've buried. Others teach us how to let go or how to stand firm. But no matter the outcome, each relationship invites us closer to wholeness, if we are willing to look inward. Jung called this the process of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming our true self. And love, even when it fails, is one of the fastest ways to get there. That relationship that ended too soon. It may have cracked open a part of you that needed light, that partner who misunderstood you. They may have taught you how to speak your truth, that bittersweet goodbye. It may have finally shown you what you truly need and what you no longer can settle for. We tend to judge relationships by whether they lasted, but what if the real question is, did they help me grow? As someone in the later chapters of life, you've likely loved deeply and lost deeply too. You've seen relationships change, fade, surprise you. And now, maybe you carry both the joy and the ache of what love has given you and what it has taken away. But there is great wisdom in that ache, because the older we get, the more we begin to see love not just as something to receive, but as something that shaped us. It made us stronger, softer, wiser, and it continues to do so, sometimes through memory, sometimes through the stories we tell, sometimes simply in the quiet recognition of who we've become because of who we've loved. And here's the beauty: it's never too late to keep growing. You may not be chasing grand romances anymore, but you are still capable of deep connection, still open to reflection, still on the journey of understanding yourself. And perhaps now, with all the years behind you, you're finally ready to see love, not as something you get from someone else, but as something that awakens the best parts of who you are. So, what do we do with all of this? We begin to look at love through gentler eyes. We forgive the people who couldn't love us the way we needed. We forgive ourselves for the ways we may have loved from fear or fantasy. And we honor the relationships that weren't meant to last, but were meant to teach. Because sometimes, the love that didn't stay was the very thing that helped us come home to ourselves. And that is no small thing. So the next time a memory stirs, a name, a face, a feeling, pause. Don't push it away. Ask, what was life trying to show me through that person? Not in judgment, but in gratitude. Every love has meaning, every connection, a lesson. And the more we understand the architecture of the soul, the projection, the archetype, the transformation, the more peace we can make with the loves we've had and the love we still carry inside. Because in the end, love is not something that fades with age. It deepens, and as long as we're willing to learn from it, it continues to bring us closer to who we were always meant to be. If love is a mirror, as Jung taught us, then awareness is the light that lets us finally see what's being reflected. In the last section, we explored how every relationship, no matter how short, painful, or mysterious, has the potential to transform us. But what happens when we don't recognize that potential? When we miss the lesson, misread the reflection, or mistake a deep emotional pull for fate rather than for growth? That's where so many people, especially in their younger years, get stuck, and sometimes even later in life. We find ourselves pulled toward the same kind of person, the same heartbreak, the same emotional pattern. Only the names and faces change. You've likely seen it in others, maybe even in yourself. Falling for someone emotionally unavailable, always being the giver, choosing the loud personality when what you long for is peace, being attracted to chaos when what you really crave is calm. It can feel like a cruel cycle, like life keeps handing you the same test over and over again. But Jung would say it's not life testing you, it's your unconscious trying to teach you. When we don't take time to understand why we're drawn to certain people, we're at the mercy of invisible forces. We think we're choosing love, but really our unfinished business is choosing for us. And until we become aware of those inner drivers, those projections, those archetypes, those emotional longings, we risk spending decades chasing the same illusion again and again. That's why Jung places so much importance on conscious awareness. Once we begin to see our patterns clearly, we are no longer bound by them. We start to ask better questions, not just, why did this happen? But, what did this wake up in me? And with each question, the mirror becomes less blurry. For older adults, this awareness is a powerful gift, because now you have enough life behind you to trace the patterns. You can look back with clarity, not just pain. You can recognize who brought joy into your life and who brought lessons wrapped in heartbreak. You can reflect on not just who you loved, but how you loved, and whether you were loving from fullness or from a place of unmet need. And here's where healing begins, in recognizing that not all love was meant to last, but every love was meant to reveal. You see, projection isn't bad. It's not something we need to feel ashamed of. It's part of being human. But the real growth happens when we catch ourselves in it, when we pause and ask, am I seeing this person for who they really are, or for who I hope they'll be? That one question, asked honestly, can change everything. Because once you understand your patterns, you stop expecting other people to complete you. You stop falling in love with potential or with fantasy. You start falling in love with presence, with real connection grounded in truth. And maybe most importantly, you start loving yourself in a way that doesn't need to be mirrored or validated by someone else. Think about that for a moment. How many times in your life have you wanted someone to see the real you, to love not the version of you they imagined, but the you that existed in silence and doubt and hope? And how often have you offered that same love to yourself? Awareness allows you to do that. It turns love into a conscious choice rather than an unconscious reaction. It helps you recognize when someone sees you clearly and when they only see their own hopes projected onto you. And it gives you the power to respond with wisdom, not just longing. You don't need to repeat the same love stories. You don't need to carry the same heartbreak into each new chapter, because now, with awareness, you have something that younger versions of yourself didn't: discernment. And with that, even the memories that once brought pain can begin to soften. You can revisit them with new eyes. You can see the young person you once were, not as foolish or broken, but simply unaware, still learning, still searching for a reflection that made sense. And now, in this season of life, you get to bring it all full circle. You get to understand, and that understanding, the quiet wisdom that grows from lived experience, is one of the most beautiful forms of peace there is. So if love has ever hurt you, confused you, or left you wondering why, know this: it wasn't wasted. It was leading you here, to this moment of clarity, of truth, of deep inner knowing. And from here, love can finally become what it was meant to be all along. Not a rescue, not a chase, but a conscious mutual recognition of soul and self. So, after everything we've explored, after peeling back the layers of unconscious attraction, projection, anima and animus, and emotional transformation, you may find yourself looking at love through a different lens, not as something random, not as something you failed at, but as something sacred, something that was always trying to show you who you really are. Maybe the people who walked away weren't the ones who stayed. Maybe the ones who hurt you were unknowingly handing you the keys to your own healing. And maybe every love, no matter how imperfect, was perfectly timed to bring you closer to yourself. Because in the end, love is not just about finding someone to grow old with. It's about remembering that you've never stopped growing. Even now, especially now, you still have the capacity to reflect, to feel, to understand your past with compassion, and to meet every new connection, not with fear or fantasy, but with clarity, gentleness, and truth. So the next time someone is drawn to you, or you feel that pull toward another soul, pause. Ask yourself, what part of me is waking up right now? That question alone could change everything. Now I invite you to reflect. Has there ever been someone who changed the way you see yourself, even if the relationship didn't last? What did that connection awaken in you? Share your story in the comments. We read every word, and your experience could help someone else on their journey. And if this video moved you, even in a small way, please hit subscribe to join our community. We release new videos every week to help you grow, heal, and find deeper meaning at every stage of life. Because this journey, this beautiful, messy human journey, isn't over yet, and neither is love. Not by a long shot. We'll see you in the next one. Take care of your heart. It's still listening.